Hello everybody, welcome to another video. My name is Infiniti and today I am going to be showing you guys how to knit my knitted Plumbob pattern that I released back on July 29th. I was doing that in honor of the Sims 4 Nifty Knitting Pack, which I was really excited to have and to get to play with. It's really interesting. So I know back when I released the written pattern, I promised to release my Plumbobs out into the world via video, and today I am looking forward to diving into that. So without further ado, I'm just going to jump into my tutorial. Now with me today I have my written pattern printed out. You guys have to let me know either in my comments or over on my blog if you want me to make it into a PDF. I will be more than glad to do so. Just let me know. And I have a copy of my pattern. I have my knitting needles that I'm going to use. You can use really any gauge as well as the accompanying yarn. I will be using some Big Twist and some Red Heart today for this tutorial. You'll need 2 colors and we're just going to jump into this. So the first row of my pattern says to cast on 30, which I have already done. So if you don't know how to cast on, I have a whole playlist on how to knit back on my channel, so feel free to check that out. I've cast on my 30, and so row 1 is just going to be a solid row of knitting. And if you guys saw last week's video, I tend to knit my first row with my tail in and weave it in as I go, so I don't have to deal with it later. That is completely optional. Some people don't like that thicker lip at the bottom of their project. I do. It's just a matter of personal preference. But I'm just going to go about knitting this up. Alright, now that I have all 30 of my stitches cast on, what I'm going to do is go ahead and snip my tail, because I made it super long and I don't want to accidentally end up knitting with that because I'll be sad. So I'm just going to snip it to a nice manageable length since it's all nice and woven in here. Alright. So now we're going to do row 2, and row 2 is just going to be purling. So if you ended up weaving in your tail as you cast, as you knit your first row that you cast on, you just have to remember that these 2 strands here that are on the needles, on your non-working needle, this counts as one stitch. So make sure you're not doubling up your stitches here. But we're going to insert purlwise, and we are just going to purl. I'm going to purl all the way across. Why? Bring your yarn to the front, guys. So now that we have done row 2, which was completely purled, the next part of the pattern says rows 3 through 10 we need to alternate knit and purl. So what I mean by this is that for row 3 we're going to knit everything, and then for row 4 we're going to purl everything, and we're going to do that alternatively until we get to row 10. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Just going to start knitting. So a little bit more about this pattern. Like I said, I have been playing The Sims, and I've been playing The Sims for a very long time. I have a lot of play hours, and I was so excited when they were coming out with this pack. I'm like, you know what would be a great idea? Making a blanket dedicated to one of my unknown passions. I don't typically tell people that I play The Sims unless I'm asked, like, oh, what do you like to play? So that was one of my things, and I was very excited that now I can kind of do gameplay. If I wanted to do a storyline involving my own character or something, I could do that and make a character that knits her way through college, because you know what, it looks like that's the route I'm taking. And I wouldn't trade it for the world, but now it's just really more, it's more realistic in a way. And I think it's so cute, the animations that the Sims have when they just like first start knitting out. They're so awkward. Just like most of us were when we started knitting. But again, crafting should be kind. So however you knit, and whatever pace you knit, whatever your skill level is, you know, don't be ashamed of it. Make proudly. and make in a way that makes you happy, because that's the primary reason I think we get into crafts. Knitting is therapy. Knitting is just nice once you get the hang of it. I do wish we had crochet in the game as well, but I think the animation is just kind of difficult to do from an artist perspective, and for somebody who like tried to dabble in animation, I think that the mechanics of that is just a little difficult, a little nitpicky, no pun intended. So I'm very happy and content to have knitting and all its wonderful attributes in the game. And no, this video is not sponsored, but I'm just a fanatic, so. I'm doing that backwards, yeah. Alright, now row 4, we're going to move on and we're going to do a whole row of purling. I apologize in advance if it looks like I'm twisting my stitches when I purl. I may or may not be. The way I knitted for 4 3/4 of the 5 years I've been knitting apparently was wrong. So, you know, but I always came out with the same results, so I never really like got too particularly out of whack about it. But I do try, when I do these videos, I do try to actually use the regular mechanics that you're supposed to use when knitting. But if you're getting the same results and what you're doing is working for you, I have nothing against it. And also about this pattern, as we sit back, we relax, and we do these alternating rows of knits and purls. This blanket of mine is going to be sort of a mood blanket. I only have 3 of my patches up so far that I have done, and that is because I'm in the midst of doing a whole bunch of other things. I think today's Plumbob is going to be purple. If you guys don't know, in The Sims, when Sims get dazed, their moodlets turn purple. Not necessarily the Plumbob, but I like implementing the other colors in to kind of add some variety. Because not every day is a green day. And I like, while I'm enjoying this university that I have transferred into, I think it is just really a really crazy experience getting reacclimated to taking academic courses, and not just in art studio courses, and not just leisurely taking them for grades. You know, it's been a wild thing this past couple of weeks, but I would not trade it for the world. And I think that'll always be my outlook for that. Very positive for the most part. Very optimistic in a way. Alright. I'm not going to bore you guys with doing all of my alternate knit and purl rows here. I'm going to do the rest of those off camera, and I'll meet you guys back when I am ready for row 11. Make sure you have your color B ready, because row 11 shall be a color change row. Okie dokie, so now that I have gotten to the end of row 10, row 10 was a row of purls, so you should be on the front side of your work in this pattern, and you will be knitting this row. Now this is our first row where we will be doing color change. So the pattern says to knit 14, so we're going to go ahead and knit 14. Oops. 3, 4, let's see, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14. now that we have knit 14, in this 15 stitch we are going to be knitting, but we're going to be knitting with our color B. So whatever color you've decided to use as your color B, you're just going to connect that by folding over your yarn, making a loop. You're just going to knit that in there. Alright. Then we're going to drop our color B and we're going to pick up our color A again, and we are going to go ahead into that next stitch and start knitting with it. Now you're going to notice that this stitch is loose. That's because it's just one little stitch hanging there, but that's okay. You can cinch them tighter when you knit your next stitch. And there we have it. So now we're going to knit the next 14 stitches to the end. Alright, we're knitting that last stitch, and this is the end of row 11. This is what you should have. 15 stitches on this side. This center stitch is your color B, and then the remaining 14 stitches of the row, you're just going to knit in your color A. Now I don't snip my colors as I'm working with them, so I will always have these two strands coming out of my work, but you can do whatever color change method works best for you. Alright, now I'm going to move on to row 12. Row 12 is a row of pearls. And the pattern says to purl 13 in color A, so we're just going to do that. Oops. Great. Oops. Alright, now that I have purled my 13, I need to change color again, so I will be dropping my color A, and I'll just be picking up my color B here, and I will begin purling with that. So I'm going to insert my needle purlwise into that next stitch, and then I'm going to yarn over and just purl, and I'm supposed to purl 3. So there's 1, here's 2, and then here's 3. Now I'm going to drop my color B, and I'm going to pick up my color A again so that I can knit the last 12 stitches to the end. So in this pattern I will obviously be doing color change, and so I will be carrying my floats coming up soon. And if you don't know how to do that, I do have a tutorial back on my channel I did a few weeks ago leading up to this tutorial, so I'll leave that linked in the description box so you can check that out as well if you need to. Don't know what that was. Alright, now we have hit the end of this row, and we can move on to row 13. Alright, row 13. Row 13 says to knit 12. So we're going to knit 12. And then we'll be doing color change. So let's see, 1, 2. Okay, so at the beginning of this color change, I'm going to be carrying my float. You can start carrying your floats at any point that you would like, but I'm just going to start with this row. So just going to do that. Like I said, if you don't know how to carry floats, I do have a more in-depth tutorial on my channel. You can go ahead and check that out to help you along with this pattern. Alright, and I'm just going to start knitting with my color B. Then this last stitch, I'm going to carry that float again. Alright, so I have knit 5 stitches in my color B. Now I'm going to pick up my color A again, and I'm going to knit until the end. Now we are on row 13, and we need to, we are on row 14, and we need to purl 13. So we just knit 13, so we're just going to purl in each of those stitches we've knitted in. Stitch number 13. And now we're going to be picking up our color B, and we're going to be purling in those stitches that we knit from the previous row. So you can choose to carry your float here, or if you're not, like I said, if you're not sure how to do that, I do have a tutorial back on my channel. Alright, now that I have purled those stitches, now I get to switch back to my color A and just continue knitting into the end. Alright, let's take a look. So this is what the pattern is starting to look like. Each row, or every other row rather, we are expanding out 2 stitches. So now this row 15, we are going to end up knitting 11 in our color A, and then we're going to change color. I'm going to knit my 11. So now I've knit 11 in color A. So now I am ready to knit 7 in color B. Again, carrying those floats because that's important. Alright, there's 1. 2. That's 6. And then we're going to do number 7. And now that we have knit 7 in color B, we're going to go ahead and knit 12 in the last 12 stitches with color A. Alright, and this is what we have so far. Alright, now on to row 16. Row 16, we are going to be turning our work, we are going to be purling 12 in color A. We're going to change back to color B. We are going to purl 7, and then we are going to finish that row and purl 11 in the remaining stitches. I'm going to bring my yarn forward. There we go. Alright, now that I've purled my 12 in color A, I'm going to go about changing to my color B. pick it up. And again, carrying that first float. I'm experimenting a little bit with this one. In my previous patches, I would carry the float in the center strand. However, for this one, I wanted to try just carrying them on the ends until a certain point, because I feel that that would make the pattern a lot looser, and it would better match my tight tension that I am still working on. I think that's a common problem amongst crafters who do yarn craft. Our tension tends to be a little bit tight. But that can be remedied by using larger needles than the gauge calls for with your yarn. And when carrying your floats, I know I mentioned in my tutorial for that it helps when you unbunch your stitches. That way you don't accidentally over tension your project. And usually when I carry my floats, my loops are super loose until I complete that stitch, just so I can tension it properly once I complete it. And now I can drop this color B and I can pick my color A right on back up and continue knitting and purling until the end. So you should have 11 more stitches on this row. Oops. And just gonna purl in them. Alright, now that is the end of row 16. We are going into row 17 already. We're halfway there. So row 17, we are going to knit 11 in color A. We're going to change back to our color B and we're going to purl 7. And then we are going to knit 12 at the end in those last stitches. So just going to go ahead and knit. So you'll actually notice you'll be repeating rows 15 and 16 for rows 17 and 18. It's the exact same alternate rows. So I'm going to continue doing those rows off camera, and I'll meet you guys back when I am ready for row 19. Alright, so for row 19, it says to knit 10 in color A. So we are going to go ahead and do that. Oops. Alright, now that we have knit our 10, what I'm going to do is go ahead and change my color to my color B. And I'm going to start working with it. Oops. There we go. Alright, and we are going to be knitting 9 in color B. Here's 2. going to drop color B now, and we are going to knit the remaining 11 in color A. Alright, and we are now at the end of row 19. So for row 20, we will be purling 11 and in color A, and then we will be purling 9 in color B, and then we're going to change back to color A and purl 10 to the end. So I'm going to go ahead and pick that up. And I really like how my Plumbob is starting to look as far as tension goes on the front, so I think I will continue to use this method when I make my other patches for my blanket. Let's go ahead and purl our 11, 2, 3, 4, 5, Alright, now we can start working with our color B now that we have our 11 stitches. Like I said, I like to adjust my float, like the stretchiness of my float, after I have knit that last stitch, just so it doesn't bunch up on me in there. And just a little tension correction, I guess. Alright, now we can move back to color A. And we are going to purl 10 to the end. So 1, 2, 3, Alright, row 21, we are going to be knitting 9 in color A. And 1, here's 2, Alright, and now that we have knit our 9, we are going to be changing color again to color B. Alright, and now we are going to be knitting 11 in color B. One, two, three, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Here's 10. Alright, now in our 11th stitch, I'm going to knit one more time with color B. I'm carrying my floats here. Alright, I'm going to drop color B and go ahead and knit the remaining 10 stitches in color A. Alright, so now we are on to row 22, and we are going to be purling 10. We're going to change our color. We're going to purl 11 in our color B. We're going to change back to color A, and then we're going to purl 9 to the end. Alright, we are done with row 22. We're going to move on to row 23 now. And for row 23, we are going to knit 8 in color A. We are going to then change color and knit 13 in color B. And then we're going to come back to color A and knit 9 till the end. Now I'm working in my color B. Like I said, I'm going to knit 13. So there was 1, 2, 3. And as your increases become more far apart, you may want to catch your floats or carry your floats in the center of your plumb bob. It all depends on the size of your project. Oops, don't want to keep knitting in that color. Gonna drop my color B. Gonna pick up color A, and I'm going to knit in those last 9 stitches. Row 24. So row 24, we're going to purl in those first 9 stitches with color A. And we're going to change back to color B. We are going to then purl 13 in color B. We're going to change back to color A, and we're going to purl 8. Alrighty. And I'm now changing back to color A to purl out those last 8 stitches. Alright, row 25, we are going to be knitting 7 in color A. We're going to change back to color B and knit 15, and then we're going to come back to color A and knit 8. Alright, now that we've knit our 7, I can change my color. now we're going to knit the last 8 stitches of this row. Right, row 26. So what we're going to be doing for row 26 is basically a reversal of the previous row. So we are going to turn our work. We're going to be purling 8 in color A. Then we're going to be purling 15 in color B, and then we're going to come back to color A and purl 7 to the end. Oops. Alright, row 27. So what we're going to do for row 27 is we are going to knit 8 in color A, then we're going to come in and we're going to knit 13 in color B, and then we're going to change back to color A and we're going to knit 9 to the end. So what we're beginning to do here is kind of rein it in a little bit. We've been expanding this entire time, so now we need to start going back up in a point. Gonna carry my color on this 13th one. Alright. And cinch that. Now I'm changing back to my color A. And we're going to knit 9 to the end. Alright, so now moving on to row 28. Row 28 is going to be a purl row, and that row says to purl 9, then we're going to change color, we're going to purl 13 in color B, and then we're going to change back to color A and finish the row with 8 purl stitches in color A. Let's go ahead and start purling. Oops. Alright, and now we're going to finish up this row with 8 purl stitches in our color A. Alright, now we can move on to row 29. We're just going to turn our work here. Now row 29 says we need to knit 11 in color A. Then we are going to change back to color B. We're going to knit 8 in color B. Then we're going to change back to color A and knit 11 to the end. So it's a fairly easy row. So as you can see or may start to notice, we are again decreasing the amount of colored stitches in the center of our work to come back up into a point similar to the bottom, but a little bit shorter. Alright. Oops. And there's 3. Alright, so now that I have knit 11, I'm going to change to my color B. Alright, and now that I've changed my color, I'm going to knit the next 7 stitches with this color. So I'm supposed to do 8 in total, so here's my first one. We're going to go on and do the second one. Six, 7, 8. Now we're going to change back to our color A. And we are going to knit 11 to the end. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and completing the row with my 11th stitch. And this is what our work looks like for this row. Coming on along. It's coming on along. Alright, now for row 30, we are going to be purling 12. Then we're going to change color. We're going to purl 6 in color B, and then we're going to come back to color A and purl 12 to the end. We're just going to turn our work. 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Alright. It never hurts to recount, guys. Ever. Alright. Now, I'm going to start back knitting with color A until the end, which should be 12 stitches. So, here's 2, 3, 4, and 5, 6, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. There we go. Alright, and on to row 31. Turning our work. And this is what it looks like on the back, on the front. Okay, this is the back of this patch, and like I said, in previous patches I carried my floats in the center of my work, and you can do that or you can do this, but I would not recommend doing this, which is not carrying your floats at all because it just leaves all these strings in here, and I would fear that the project would come undone. But this is the back that I have right here, and I've gone about carrying my floats from side to side. So now we can move on to row 31. Row 31, we are going to knit 12, then we are going to change color, and we are going to knit 6 in color B, and then we're going to switch back to color A and knit the last 12 stitches. So basically the reverse of the row that we just did. Oops. 2. Row 32. So for row 32, what we're going to do is turn our work, and we are going to purl 13 in color A. Then we're going to change back to color B, and we're going to purl 5, and then we're going to change back to color A and purl 12 to the end. So I'm just going to get started on that purling. Row 33, we are going to knit 13 in color A, and we're going to come back and change our color to color B and knit 3, and then we're going to change back to color A and knit 14 to the end. We are almost there, guys. Oops. 2. Alright. Now we're going to move on to our final row of color change. So row 34, what we're going to be doing is we're going to turn our work, and we are going to purl 15 in color A, then we're going to change color, purl 1 in color B, and then we're going to change back and purl 14 to the end. So now we have pretty much come full circle. Alright, now we're at the end of row 34, and at this point you can actually snip this color. Make sure you leave a decent amount of tail so you can weave it in later. Now for the rest of the pattern, we are just going to be working in color A, which is fantastic. Row 35, we are going to be doing all knit. Alright, row 36, we are just going to turn our work and we are going to purl all the way across the row. Alright, so now that we have completed row 36, the last 4 rows of our pattern, we are going to alternate doing knits and purls, rows of knits and purls. So row 37 is going to be all knit, row 38 is going to be all purl, and so on until you get to row 40, and then we can cast off. So I'll meet you guys back when I am ready to cast this patch off. Alright, now I have all 40 rows of this patch done and I am ready to cast off finally. So in order to cast off, what you want to do is you want to insert your needles, insert your working needle knitwise, and you're going to knit 2. Then you're going to put this non-working needle under that first needle, under that first loop, and you are going to use your working needle to bring that second loop underneath. And that leaves us with 1 loop on our needle, 2, and we can continue to cast off doing that. Alright, and then from there, we're just going to continue to knit 1, and then you take your non-working needle, you slip it under that first loop on your working needle, and then you use your working needle to bring that second one underneath, and that leaves us with 1 loop left on our hook, and you are continually casting off these stitches from your working needle. Alright, and so I'm just going to go ahead and do that, and I'll meet you guys back when I'm done. Alright, I have cast off my entire project and I am left with this singular loop on my needle. So you could either use the needle to chain 1, or if you have a crochet hook handy, you could also chain 1 with that. And you can snip off a decent amount of tail. I'm going to be a little extra about mine because I'm going to be sewing it to other patches. So I want a decent amount to be able to do that with. And this is what I'm left with. Now this pattern does curl up on the sides and the top / bottom, so if you want to block that, it's totally up to you. But this has been my Plumbob patch tutorial. I hope today's video was fun for you guys. If so, don't forget to leave me a thumbs up. Let me know how I did. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell because I will be coming out with more project tutorials this year and I am super excited to do so. You guys have to let me know if you want this pattern in a PDF. It is available for free over on my blog, which is linked in my description box below. When this video hits 20 likes, I will go ahead and make a PDF for you guys to download from my blog, and that'll be accessible to everybody. Don't forget to check me out on other social media. I am on pretty much everything except for Snapchat, so I have a little something out there for everybody. So go ahead and check that out. I also have an Etsy store where I sell my patterns and hand makes. And I have a Teespring shop where I sell my merch. And until next time, guys, happy making.